what can communities like ours in Australia right now do, and what can governments like Australia do that has a significant, not a powerful Hazara diaspora, but a significant diaspora here and growing? You know, what can we do to make sure that we're adding to the efforts of advocacy and not taking away from it?
Yeah, thank you, Sabram John. I think that's a very vital question that we all need to ask ourselves, especially in events like this. So the Genocide Convention of 1948, if I remember correctly, Professor Melly, 1948, they also has a positive obligation of states, whoever has ratified that. So Australia is a member, is a states party to the Genocide Convention of 1948, and there's a positive obligation on Australia. The genocide obliges any member states to the convention to prevent and punish the crimes of genocide. So there's an obligation there by the Genocide Convention that we have. What can we do specifically to hold people who committed genocide accountable as a diaspora group? I believe the diaspora group, you're being very humble, Shabnam John, looking from outside. The diaspora group in Australia, I think, is one of the strongest diaspora around the world. And I really applaud you all for such a sense of community and harmony and coming together to respond to each attacks that has been happening in Afghanistan. That's very important. And also the reviving the Stop Hazara Genocide, I think it got, if I'm not mistaken, over 1 million hashtags last year. So that, I applaud you all for that. I mean, I give you a significant comments for that, because it has been coming from Australia, the majority of them. So what can we do specifically? You have started the platform. I know that the way ahead is extremely long, and but we should never be disappointed by that. We have to be determined in what we want to do. There's another principle in international criminal law which is called universal jurisdiction. The principle of universal jurisdiction means that any person, any individual who have committed international crimes, no matter in which country, no matter against who, they should be prosecuted, they should be investigated. That principle is also recognized in Australia. So what you can do is that you have to approach within your community members, with their MPs, to actually go ahead and mobilize them in terms of politically. As I said, international criminal law is extremely political. Unfortunately, in terms of intervening and preventing and punishing crime of genocide, there might not be a lot of political appetite. It might not be in the priorities of a lot of states right now to recognize the Hazara genocide, as clear as it is. But however, we should never be disappointed by these problems. So universal jurisdiction, what we can do, there's another, with the technology that's been advancing, as Farkhonda mentioned, that the Taliban has committed way more crimes in the 90s, like right now, but they have not been documented. So what we can do, there's a called open source investigation. So open source investigation means that all this, any of us go to Twitter or Facebook, and also being in touch with their communities back home, we come across a lot of horrifying news that's been happening back home, right? All these videos that coming out, the Taliban is killing people, harassing women on the street, harassing men on the street. We have to document them. What is absent here, we need to create this platform to document them. There has been a little, some small segregated efforts in Europe and also in Canada to document these videos, to document these atrocities, but that's not enough in the scale of the crimes that's been happening in Afghanistan. So we have to create that platform, and we have to document these crimes, and we have to identify who are the individuals that we want to hold accountable, and also victim survivors mobilization. Unfortunately, even tonight among us, we might have people who have been affected directly by these attacks, or members of their families or communities. We have to identify them, and we have to bring them together. Australia can be a very interesting place to start. I think, although there is a lot of political elements involved, but last week on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, the Australian Centre for International Justice released a policy which is calling for the Australian government to create a special investigative unit within the federal prosecutor to investigate international crimes. Apart from the Hazara communities, Australia is also home to a large number of Yazidis and other people who have been, Rohingya people who have gone similar, unfortunately, black history. So I think that will be a very, very good approach for us to join this call with this center. And as a last point, I wanted to say that justice denied, just sometimes is, we say that justice delayed is justice denied, but in terms of us, we have a really long way ahead. It should be delayed perhaps, but it should never be denied. We have to actively seek for that. And there has been a successful case, a lot of cases, especially in Germany right now, but there has been 2 cases in the Netherlands and Holland concerning one of the former member of Hot, of the Najibullah government, who were residing in the Netherlands, and he was identified by Afghan diaspora groups in Netherlands, and he was investigated. It took a long time, over 10 years, but eventually he was convicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity because he was head of presence of Najibullah. So such things could happen in Australia too, and for that we need a stronger platform, all of us to come together in harmony. Thank you.
So working in a more determined fashion, in a more strategic fashion there. Thank you, Azada Jana.